The Masquerade, Moonkeeper edition. Welcome back to the Storyteller's Moon, where love burns brightest under shadows and secrets. Tonight's story reinvents the Masquerade romance, a night of silk and silver. Yes, but also memory, inheritance, and a choice that outlives midnight. If you enjoy original romantic tales that sweep you away, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a new moonlit chapter. This is The Masquerade. Part 1. Invitation, Arrival, and a Rule That Isn't New. Imani Wright noticed the envelope because it did not belong to her life. Her life was practical and tender. Shoes that could forgive a long day on library tile, fingers blotted by ink and the ghost of dust. Curls tied back with a satin scarf so she could read the spines that had fed her since childhood. Her life smelled of lemon cleaner and paper warmed beneath fluorescent patience. Nothing in that life arrived on ivory stock, beveled to a soft light. Her name inked in loops that looked almost like music. Miss Imani Wright. No return address, no stamp, no current resident. A card within, thick enough to be a small door. You are cordially invited to the Masquerade. Midnight, the Beaumont Estate. Admittance by mask only. She turned the card twice. On the back, a pressed white camellia, flattened into elegance, petal veins like delicate handwriting. Below it, in smaller script, one more line she almost missed. Ask, and the night answers. Her phone buzzed. Aliyah, brunch tomorrow? No excuses? I'm bringing the gossip and the grits. Imani sent a photo. Tell me this is a prank. 3 dots. Then, girl. The Beaumont. Another dot. We're red. Imani said she didn't own red. Aliyah said she did now. Evening found her wrapped in a gown that poured like wine and decided to stay. Crimson silk hugged her and then relented, the neckline a soft V that turned her collarbones into a small prayer. Aliyah tightened the lacing, hands confident, eyes glossy with mischief and pride. Stand still, she said. You're a sculpture with a heartbeat. Masks were laid out on the bed like butterflies, black velvet, gold filigree, a crescent of mother of pearl, and a simple half mask edged in bright, hammered silver. Aliyah placed the silver into Imani's hands. This one. It's audacious without trying. When Imani fitted it, the room tilted. In the mirror, a stranger stared back, curls coaxed into a loosened crown, lips painted the color of rain-wet cherries, eyes suddenly star-bright. Not a stranger? She corrected herself. A password. Girl, Aliyah whispered, as if reverence might spook it. If anyone asks who you are, you say, herself. The Beaumont rose from its trees like a pronouncement. Columns wore the dark like pearls. Music spilled into the night, strings that meant to seduce, drums stitched under them like a second thought that would not remain second. Lantern light crushed the faces of strangers and made them relatives for one night. Imani climbed the steps, knees steady because she decided they would be. A footman in black and silver touched his earpiece, glanced at the card, and inclined his head. Welcome to the Masquerade. Inside, not a ballroom, but a garden constructed from crystal and old patience. Palms fanned their secrets, roses ran along wrought iron like gossip. Chandeliers lowered themselves to watch. Everywhere, masks. Behind them, the little anonymous storms of want and wonder. She accepted a flute of champagne for something to do with her hands. The bubbles read her pulse and decided to imitate it. "First time?" a voice said at her shoulder. Low, with depth, as if it had been aged in oak. She turned. Silver mask fitted perfectly to a face carved by intention. A black suit with the finish of a piano under stage lights. The mouth visible. A line softened by an almost smile that suggested capacity. The jaw decisive. Skin deep and warm as fresh coffee under a winter window. Enough height to send her spine lifting to meet him. Enough ease that height did not matter. "Yes," she said, because if she could not be honest while wearing a mask, then when? "Good," he said. His gaze made a patient tour. Gloved hands, the slope of her shoulder, the gleam of her mouth, back to her eyes. Unhurried, respectful, unambiguous. "Mystery suits you." He offered his arm. She placed her hand there. It was not a surrender. It was a collaboration. The violins turned, the floor parted. His palm found the small of her back in a contact so sure that the word "mine" rose uninvited to the fore-edge of her mind, and then stayed, obedient to her choice. He did not drag. He invited her momentum to become choreography. The chandeliers approved by drawing constellations across the silver curve that hid his brow. "Are there rules?" she asked, because structure could be erotic when it protected tenderness. "One," he said. "No names." "None?" "Not tonight." He bent a fractional inch nearer so the words could find her skin. Let the rest happen. They moved. He pivoted her into a view of the balcony doors thrown open to the night. He drew her back into the line of his body and let the bass note of his breath tell her something reliable about gravity. She asked him later if he always did this. He said, "No." She asked, "Hunt?" He said, "No," and tipped his chin towards the edges, where egos circled like expensive hawks. "But when something looks back the way you do," he added, "I refuse to be careless." When the song ended, he did not release her hand quickly. He turned his wrist and let their fingers lock into a more deliberate fit. He led her to the balcony. Night, all around. Lanterns slung like moons. The ache of orchestras becoming weather. "I shouldn't be here," she said, which sometimes means the exact opposite. "Then go," he said gently, and the cruelty melted at once when he added, "Or don't. Returns can wait for the woman who returns other people to themselves." The accuracy went through her like a warm blade. "What should I call you?" she asked, and hated how human the question sounded. "Tonight," he said, knuckles brushing her jaw with a devotion that walked the line between audacity and benediction. "Call me yours." The sound she made was not polite. He smiled, small, satisfied. "Dance once more," he said, voice the velvet side of instruction. "Then the gardens." "Rules there?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Don't lie with your mouth." "And the rest of me?" "We'll negotiate." They danced. They did not pretend not to be watched. When his hand spread at her lower back for one illicit beat and then withdrew, it told her both a promise and its restraint. When he kissed her gloved knuckles, it was hardly skin. It went through her anyway. He said, "Come." She said, yes. A side corridor, cooler air, a door ajar, like an invitation that assumed worth. The winter garden made of glass, and breath took them in. The fountain sang to itself in a language that had never tried to be English. Tell me a truth, he said. I settle, she said. Quiet looks good on me. The world prefers me careful. I am tired of shrinking. Then don't, he answered, and the way he said it turned can't into a rumor. Tonight, be dangerous. She lifted 2 fingers and touched the edge of his mask, pulled it 1 inch closer to her. Not off, not conquest, proximity. He did not flinch. He bent into the decision she had made. They did not kiss first. They let breath write an overture. Then he kissed her, careful, questioning, certain, until the fountain considered looking away. They would have remained there a long time, repeating this science, if the wolf had not arrived. Gold crest, entitled Slouch, a smile like an invoice. Winter gardens for board members, he drawled, eyeline sticky on Imani's bare shoulder. Leave, Silver said. No bark. A bell rung once in a room that knows what bells are for. Friend, you don't give orders. Tonight I do, Silver replied, stepping so his body made a door. Also, the glassware you are abusing and the scholarship that bought your tuxedo, both billed to my name. Leave. Wolf saw the door he could not open and slunk away to inventory, cheaper victories. So you own a piece of this place, Imani said softly. I own too many pieces of things, he admitted. Not you. Good, she said, and something old inside her exhaled. Now, he said, and the edges of his voice warmed. Let me learn you. He kissed her shoulder, wrist, the hollow where her pulse went to turn over like a warm stone. She said more, and he said yes, and the yes became a path. He did not take her to the gallery yet. He took her somewhere else first, through a narrower door, up a tighter stair that felt like a secret, into a room that expected them. It did not belong to the Beaumont. The ceiling was lower, wood beams stained by time. Shelves lined the walls, not with books one borrowed, but with masks one inherited. Not party finery. Artifacts, some feathered, some carved from silk wood and inlaid with mirror shards. Some crocheted with beads heavy enough to train a neck. A scent like cedar and she and prayers. Imani stopped. What is this? He did not speak for a breath. A room most guests cannot see, he said at last. Beaumont throws a party. But this, the masquerade, belongs elsewhere. Where? She asked, turning slowly, registration dawning. Not a closet for props, but a shrine. He reached for one mask that hung alone at eye level. Cloth, indigo, thick with patterns, dyed into truth. Cowrie shells circled the brow like a crown. The mouth was slit, the nose carved into a long slope, the eyes 2 soft wells. There are older names for it, he said. Egungun, Yonkonu, Kanaval, Jankanu, thousand cousins. The diaspora keeps what it must, by changing its address. This house, he flicked a glance toward the door where violins dreamed, borrows the word. The city borrows the glamour. This room keeps what the word meant. Imani's throat tightened. She had not expected her grandmother's humming to be waiting for her here. The rhythm she knew from summers on porches, hips and shoulders telling stories at dusk, the clack of beads that meant girls were growing up. "Why show me this?" she asked, but the answer was already rising like dawn. "Because you were invited," he said simply, "by more than the card." "Invited to what?" "Keep," he said, "not just attend." He told her then, in words that were new and older than both of them, about the Moonkeepers. Not secret, not exactly, just quiet. Women and men, and those who refused the smallness of either, whose work was to hold certain threads together in a city determined to fray. They tended archives where official histories refused. They convened dances when grief needed a way to move out of the body. They taught masks, both how to hide and how to reveal. "The Masquerade people talk about," he said, "is the costume. The masquerade the Moonkeepers hold is memory made body. The mask lets an ancestor borrow your face for a song, or lets your truest self come forward without being punished for its volume. No names isn't a flirtation trick. It's consent. Some stories can only arrive if we stop making them declare citizenship." "And you?" she asked, dizzy at the hinge of two worlds. "What do you keep?" "I keep doors," he said. "Open, guarded, honest." He paused. "I'm called a Warden. Only on nights like this. In daylight I am," he almost smiled, "the same, with fewer candles." "So you do own pieces of things," she said. And he didn't flinch. He let the accusation become description. He did not put the indigo mask on. He stood between Imani and the wall of faces and waited, as if a thing would step down when it was ready. One did. Not for him. It was not elaborate. A half mask shaped like a crescent moon, made of a fabric so black it reflected light like water. Along its edge stitched silver thread in a pattern that repeated and shifted, spine, leaf, heartbeat. The ties were satin of a red, not unlike her dress, but deeper, like pomegranate stained onto a fingertip. Imani lifted a hand without looking at her hand. The mask's surface was cool, not cold. The cool that belongs to a palm shadowing a glass of water before first sip. She pressed it to her face and felt not weight exactly. Presence. A hush like a church after the hymn, before the benediction. He watched her carefully, and not like a guard watches a door, but like a chorus listens to its soloist. "How does it fit?" "Like a sentence that remembers my name," she said, and then laughed, a little shocked at her own phrasing. "Even though we said we wouldn't." The laughter turned their gravity softer. He lifted his hand, then lowered it. "If you want to leave this room," he said, "we can pretend it didn't happen. We can put the mask back on its nail, and we can go down and dance for the chandeliers. We can do the party. It will be beautiful. It will not be enough. And if I keep it on, then you choose what you will keep, and what will keep you back." The decision was not dramatic. It was simply true. "I'm keeping it." He exhaled as if his ribs had been unlaced. "Good," he said. "Then let me show you how the night really works." He did not usher her back into spectacle yet. He taught. The first lesson was breath. The second was how to be watched without giving oneself away. The third was how to claim a room without stealing it. The fourth was listening, a listening so deep the air spoke. Masks are instruments, he said quietly. Play them. Don't be played by them. Then the gallery again. The piano, the art, lit like confession. He sat. He did not play something grand. He played a river. When he faltered on a chord because she put one gloved hand at the back of his neck, she believed him even more. She climbed onto the closed lid and let desire be both a map and a question. He kissed her with the care of a man entrusted with a relic, and the abundance of a man who understands joy is not a finite resource. Tell me to stop, he insisted once, checking the locks they had set together. Tell me to keep going, she countered, and he obeyed. They did not rush to a threshold that would turn a story from tension into aftermath. They collected voltage, spent it, collected again. Her laughter kept surfacing like a buoy, and he kept kissing it, because that sound told him he had not wandered outside her consent. Later, when Breath remembered how to be an ordinary technology, he went to a drawer built into the piano bench and returned with something wrapped in cloth. A book. Cloth cover, worn smooth by reverence. For you, he said. A first printing of a first novel that showed me a black woman, not a symbol, but a sun. It has lived with me. It wants to travel. She opened to the flyleaf. A woman's name, inked 60 years ago, neat and unsorry. Below it, a line underlined so lightly, it felt like a blessing. You're not less because they cannot carry your more. Keep it, he said. Keep me honest. Meet me in daylight, she said, the ask arriving from a part of her that had stopped apologizing. At the library. Noon. He hesitated for the first time, not with fear of being seen, but with the reverence of one preparing to walk on new ground. Yes, he said at last. Noon. He escorted her to the columns and watched her leave exactly like he promised. Hands in pockets, spine in hooth. In the car, a small box, weighted with a mask, almost identical to the one upstairs. Lined, padded, satin ties tied to her lipstick. The card underneath. For when you don't want to be small, ask, and the night answers. She slept without shrinking into herself. She dreamed a dream in which the fountain learned her breath and sang it back. Part 2. Daylight and the name of work. Morning made the Beaumont a rumor and the library a country. Fluorescence hummed like civic bees. The returns cart groaned like an old friend. Imani stamped due dates into the day and told herself to be rational. At 11:59 she looked up, because hope kept time. He came at noon, not a tuxedo, a dark coat belted neatly, a shirt open at the throat. The silver mask was gone. His face remained. Not what wealth looks like in magazines, what steadiness looks like when it has had to be earned. Close-cropped hair, a scar at his hairline like a secret handshake, eyes that did not apologize for seeing a woman they had already refused to unsee. Imani, he said. He did not whisper. He did not perform a flourish. He said her name like bread and water. You break rules, she said, because she needed some kind of railing to hold. When they're worth breaking, he said. He slid a card across the desk. No title, no company crest, a number. a name handwritten at the top that surprised her by being ordinary and therefore expensive. Ezra? Her mouth opened. He shook his head once, the way a conductor indicates a softer dynamic. No badge? He said. No resume? I'm not here to prove I'm important in rooms that do not belong to us. And who are you in rooms that do? She asked. Still Ezra, he said, and Warden sometimes. And son, and if you choose, for a while, yours. He did not reach for her. He let the counter be what it was. She came around it. She stood inches away. The encyclopedias judged them and were irrelevant. My rule, she said, and the way her voice filled that space made a student in a nearby carrel look up and smile to themselves. No guessing games at cliffs? I want you. Relief looked very good on him, like a man who had learned how to stand tall could also, when invited, lean. He lifted a hand. She took it. They did not kiss. They did something more intimate. They walked out holding hands under the unimpressed sky of a city that had forgotten how to be astonished and then remembered for a second. Daylight did not kill the masquerade. It gave it an address. They ate at a cafe that roasted beans until the air tasted like chocolate and work. He told her about the Moonkeepers in the hours when the city pretended to nap. She told him about the woman who had come to the desk, crying because a book on beekeeping reminded her grief could sweeten. He laughed, the kind of laugh with weight, and said, "That's Warden work too?" They didn't do a last name exchange. They did something bolder. They traded truths. He told her that control had once been his only way to muffle loneliness, that money had given him keys, and then locked him inside rooms with perfect doors. She told him she had learned early that being small could save you from men with big appetites and little souls, and that she was overdue to outgrow that lesson. "Imani," he said, thumb resting at the base of her palm, pulse speaking to pulse. "If you decide later that you want no more, I'm silence. If you decide you want a year of this, I'm calendar. If you decide you want to hold a mask and a hand while we build dances, other people don't know how to attend. I am..." He was not smooth here. He was trying to be accurate. Capacity. "Don't apologize for wanting me," she said. His mouth opened, closed. He nodded. "I won't." "I do." They set dates that weren't dates. They set practices. Tuesdays, an hour with the archives. Thursdays, a walk along the river, where he showed her the places the Moonkeepers hid plain as rain. The listening pose disguised as a newsstand. The small door painted the color of a pigeon. The courtyard where drum practice made a grid of the week. Saturdays, when life allowed, he took her to rooms where elders sat with tin trays of kola nut and stories. She learned to watch without taking, to ask without interrogating, to let silence grow fat with meaning until it seeded rain. He did not ask to sleep in her bed, not because he did not want to, because he knew nights have different ethics than afternoons. He did not ask, and then one night she did, and he asked again in a quieter grammar, "Are you sure?" She said yes, in a way that made him smile and shut the door like a man blessing his own house. They were careful and greedy. They let the city see certain things and kept other things, because privacy is not shame. It is wealth. He learned her coffee order. She learned the name of the scar on his hairline, and Wyatt laughed. And then, 1 month after the red dress, the white camellia arrived again. Not in an envelope this time. On the back steps of the library, under a book drop slot, a fresh blossom, impossible in that cold. Attached to it, a note. Moonkeeper trial. Noon. The small room behind the winter garden. If you do not wish it, leave the flower and return to the desk. The night will not punish you for saying no. She brought the camellia inside and set it in a jar of clean water. She went to work. She closed her shift. She did not leave the flower. Part 3. Ordeal, origin, and a mask that remembers. The small room behind the winter garden was older than the house that surrounded it. Imani felt it, the way one recognizes a song after the first 2 notes. Ezra waited at the door, not hovering, keeping a door. You don't have to, he said, meaning, I will not love you less for saying no. I know, she said, meaning, I am not doing this to impress you. He bowed his head, as if freed from a fear he would not name. Inside, 3 elders, one in a blue head wrap, heavy with gold thread, face mapped by years that had refused to be edited. One with hands that looked like prayers and punishment. One whose love had been poured into them at birth and had not run out. Child, said the first, bring your body. Imani stepped forward. The room did not become brighter. She did. The elder with the head wrap placed the indigo mask into Imani's hands, and then took it back again. Not yet, she murmured. That one carries a drum you are not ready to lift. We will start with the crescent. The crescent mask, her mask, waited on a low table. The elder with the laughing eyes tied it on, her fingers deft as midwives. This one knows you, she said, satisfied. Good. Do not let it boss you. What do I do? Imani asked, her voice steady by decision. You breathe, and you listen, said the elder with the prayer hands. You ask, and you answer. You do not decorate the truth, not even to make it pretty enough for the people who say they want it, but will break it when it arrives. They asked her no riddles. They asked her to walk. They asked her to sit. They asked her to tell them who taught her to dance. She said her grandmother in the living room, but also the children's section at the library where Joy runs with sticky hands. They asked her to remember the first time she made herself small and whether she wanted to keep that pact. She said no, clearly, like a bell. A drum in the hallway began to speak. Someone, no one said who, sang a line of an old song Imani knew only as hum. Her mask warmed. She smelled shea and salt and smoke from a porch when someone had grilled fish wrapped in recklessly spiced leaves. She felt her tongue become a door. Something old did not enter her. Something old admitted she had always been its room. Now, said the elder with the head wrap, ask. Imani did not know what to ask, so she asked for what had always scared her to ask for. Power that would not require her to imitate harm. The elder with the prayer hands smiled. That kind, she said. We can do that kind. The mask cooled. A wind moved along the floor and climbed her legs like a cat, deciding they belonged to it. She laughed. She cried. Not for fear, for relief. Ezra's body across the room softened until his bones looked like they might tip back against the wall. Pride fit him. So did awe. The elders nodded. each for their own reasons. "You are not finished," said Laughter Eyes. "You are begun." "What is my work?" Imani asked. "You will keep dances," said the head wrap elder, "and books, and the places where those two are the same. You will make it easier for people to tell the truth without paying with their entire day's bread. You will not fix everything. You will hold a corner so others can work." Imani bowed her head to the instruction as if to a queen who had been patient. "Bring her to the pool," said the elder with prayer hands to Ezra. "Let the water see the mask. If the water approves, it will return her face to her cleaner than it found it." They went together, not touching, until the door closed them into the night. The pool was shallow and made of old stone that had never forgotten river. Ezra did not narrate. He undid the satin ties, slit the mask half off, and then half on again, as if reminding it that consent is choreography too. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes," she said. He lowered the crescent to the water. It did not wet. It drank. The stitched silver shivered like a fish deciding to become a star. Imani looked down and saw her face reflected. The reflection smiled back a half-second sooner than she did. It unsettled and then amended her. The mask did not return her to innocence. It set her into clarity. "Imani," Ezra said, quiet as the night when it is full. "If you tell me, 'Stop now,' we stop. If you tell me, 'Hold,' I will hold. If you tell me, 'Keep,' I will keep until your arms grow tired of holding me back." She laughed, because laughter was the correct answer to tenderness, large enough to disorient. "Keep," she said. He kissed her then, not like a man who had discovered a prize, but like a partner, asked to carry a corner of something heavy and gleefully agreeing. His mouth learned the new answer of her jaw. His hands learned the new grammar of her back. When they paused, the mask laid a cool cheek to hers and claimed neither of them. "Tell me your name again," she whispered. "Ezra," he said. She tested it on her tongue and put it with the other names she had begun to wear without apology. Keeper, lover, archivist, dangerous. The elders put 2 fingers to the mask and to Imani's forehead, one after the other. "Sleep," they ordered, and the authority of women who have delivered cities made it not a suggestion, but a gift. She slept. She dreamed of a courtyard full of girls practicing steps they would not be shamed for, boys learning how to follow, elders correcting posture, with a look that carried both love and a ruler. Part 4. The night that lifts and the day that doesn't blink. The party called Masquerade happened again the following week, because money loves repetition. The masquerade that mattered convened between its beats. Imani walked into the Beaumont, not as a guest, borrowing glow, but as a keeper, testing light. The silver mask found her as if it had been waiting by the colonnade. Ezra wore black again, but it sat differently. It sat like a man ready to be led. "Tonight," he said, "I'm ward only where doors require it. Elsewhere, I'm yours to deploy. Then keep wolves from the edges," she said, "and count for me." "What shall I count?" he asked, gladdened to ask. "Girls laughing with their shoulders down," she said. "Boys learning to apologize without losing rhythm. People who arrive lonely and leave curious. And all the times, our bodies remember home. Yes, he said, and kissed the glove that had anchored itself to his chest. They danced the way two planets cooperate. She made room and took room without submitting her choices into a lottery. He orchestrated flows around them so that collisions became choreography. When a man drifted into their path with the kind of smile that thinks it is irresistible because it does not know how to be refused, Ezra's attention rearranged him without breaking time. Between songs, Imani left the ballroom and wandered back into the mask room. She had not come to admire herself. She had come to make an introduction. The crescent was ready to move. She lifted it into her hands and looked toward the doorway where a girl stood. No, a woman, younger than Imani by a decade, and a grief. The woman wore a cheap lace mask, bought at a stall that sold synthetics and sugar. She held herself like a person tired of being told which piece of her body was a public resource. "Come," Imani said gently. The woman stepped in, hesitation wrapped in hope. "I shouldn't. You should do exactly what you choose," Imani said, and offered the crescent. "Borrow this face for one song. See what it says back." The woman's fingers stuttered over the black surface. Imani tied the satin in a bow that could be undone with one tug. "No names?" the woman asked. "No names if you want," Imani said. "Names if you need." They walked out together. The chandelier light made a road under their feet. Ezra watched them with a pride that did not need to be explained to any man secure enough to look at his own hands and see why they were beautiful. The borrowed mask taut quickly. The woman's shoulders lowered. Her breath dropped from collarbone to belly where true rhythm lives. A young man approached and did not reach without asking. She said yes because he had earned it. He led without dragging. She followed without disappearing. Imani watched the lesson ripple outward across a floor full of people who believed they had come for decadence and found instead a structure that could hold their tenderness without cracking. After the song, the woman returned the mask. She cried, not for fear, for pleasure and relief. Two cousins who often arrive holding hands. Imani kissed her damp cheek and did not ask for a story not offered. The bow slid loose. The crescent grew warmer in Imani's palms. "Keeper," Ezra said, arriving as if he'd known precisely when the air would need to change. "The gallery?" "The gallery," she said, "because what good is building a ritual if you cannot also keep a promise to joy?" They did not go to the grand piano first. They went to a smaller room down a small flight of stairs, where the art had not yet been positioned for the party's gaze. Canvases leaned like tired saints. A statue under a dropcloth looked like a ghost demoted and relieved. Ezra watched Imani stand in the doorway and make the room part of her body. He did not need to name the miracle. He had done enough naming for one life. She set the mask on a crate. "Tonight we try something else," she said. "What?" "You let me," she said, stepping close until the air between them turned ceremonial. "Do the leading." He laughed without deflection. Pleasure, not ego-wounded. "Yes." She did not choreograph a performance of aggression. She orchestrated an offering, her hands on his jaw, his lapel, his shoulders, her mouth at his throat, then his lips, then the angle where breath catches. She led by listening exactly the way he had shown her 100 small ways. When he trembled, she steadied. When he steadied, she pressed. When he pressed, she praised. Good, she said against his mouth, word curling into a promise only he would ever hear. At one pause, she put her forehead to his. Tell me a truth, she murmured. He swallowed. I've been, wealthy, he said, without theater. But this is the only kind that does not make me lonely. She kissed him for being brave enough to insult his own resume. Good, she said again, and the word baptized them both. They could have fallen over the edge then. They didn't because music is better when it leaves desire a little hungry on purpose. They returned to the floor full of bodies, and the city's richer citizens did their best to pretend they were the most interesting thing happening under the chandeliers. They were wrong. Imani danced with Ezra and with a grandmother who had come to watch, but been asked with such grace she agreed, and with a teenager who had never watched his hands become a language and learn some verbs. She danced with herself, and in that dance the room learned its correct size. When the party's expensive hour grew thin, Ezra kept a promise he had made in a room with masks on the wall. He counted. He brought Imani numbers as if they were flowers. 7 girls, laughing with their shoulders down, he said, and 11 boys whose apologies made them. Taller, not smaller. 3 people who arrived lonely and left curious. All of us remembering home every time you breathed. She laughed and caught his face in her hands as if he were water and she had just remembered thirst. They did not make a spectacle of leaving. They slipped past the roses that had stayed open a little too late, past the footman whose earpiece had never blunted his jealousy of miracles, into a night that had decided to stay up to see how everything ended. Imani, Ezra said at the steps, voice warm as cedar. I want, he faltered, to take you home. Not because you require escort, because I want to be the one to see you cross your own threshold. Then do, she said, and he did. The car door, the seatbelt click, streetlights sewing a line through their silence. He did not ask to come in. In the corridor outside her apartment, he said, Tell me when. Soon, she answered, and kissed his mouth in a way that meant now and also not yet. He walked away, not slow, not fast, hands in pockets, as if the night had learned him by heart. She slept long. She woke knowing a thing she had not known. She did not want to ask for his last name in order to anchor him. The anchoring had already occurred elsewhere. In the room with the elders, in the reflection pool, in how his hands had learned her without drafting a map for anyone else to read. In the morning, a photo arrived. His hand, the book on his palm, the crescent mask beside it, a white camellia lying across both like a small moon. Beneath, text, no names, all hours, Ezra. Her laugh, low, unhurried, scattered every speck of shame that had ever been sold to her as caution. Part 5. The thing we invented. Months braid themselves. Festivals arrive with drums that refuse to be ignored by walls. The Moonkeepers' work multiplies, workshops where men relearn how to hold hands without turning them into cuffs, circles where women practice being loud without apology and quiet without being overlooked. Readings in the library at midnight, where elders tell all the parts of stories, usually edited for length. Imani keeps dances and books. She builds a shelf in the archive labeled "Some Days We Needed to Laugh First," and another that reads "Instructions for Tenderness in a City that Pretends It Forgot." The young come, the old nod, the middle-aged bring casseroles, because they have learned where the real feasts occur. Ezra does not become less himself in the daylight. He becomes more useful. His money is deployed like a rope thrown to a person climbing, not like a gate built to make photographs look exclusive. He learns the small person's trick of paying for a thing quietly, so no one is humiliated at the point of sale. He learns to say, "I don't know," and mean it. He learns to say, "Teach me," and shut up. The Masquerade, where people think they come to kiss secrets and drink champagne, continues to glitter as a useful misdirection. The Masquerade that matters becomes more itself. Masks travel from room to room like witnesses. The indigo with cowries lands one night on the brow of a man who hasn't danced since his brother died, and helps his bones find a sentence without dropping it. The crescent spends 5 minutes on the face of a nurse who has given away all her gentleness and needs to wear some on her own tongue. The paper-thin lace from the stall that sells synthetics also matters, because intention can make cheap things holy. One evening, a board member tries to buy his way into the small room. Ezra doesn't raise his voice. "No," he says. "Your money can sponsor the floor wax. It cannot ask the floor to become a stage for your performance." The man glowers. Ezra takes several steps back and opens both hands as if to demonstrate the absence of weapons. "This is not about denying you entry," he says. "It is about teaching you to enter correctly." The man, unused to being educated by a person he cannot fire, chooses sulk over growth and leaves. The door remains what it is, kept. After, Imani and Ezra sit with paper plates of food neither of them deserves to judge and eat standing, backs to a wall that suddenly seems to love them. "I keep thinking," he says, "about the first thing you asked for." "Which?" "Power that doesn't require imitation of harm." She smiles, tooth and brightness both. "We're inventing it." He tilts his head. "We are," he agrees, and then adds, delight loosening the sentence, "and it has better music." In bed, they become architects who understand that structures fail when corners are neglected. They tend corners, they worship thresholds, they break for water and laughter the way marathoners break for oranges. Except sex is not a marathon, it is a village. People come and go, tending fires, carrying news, asking for and giving rest. They do not monetize what should not be monetized. They do not perform what they haven't agreed to rehearse. They colonize nothing. Sometimes, when desire has finished flaming and turned to coals, Ezra rests his head back against her shoulder, the way he had the first time at the piano. He has learned to do it without apology. She has learned to receive it as if he were priceless and also common, like breath. Aliyah approves loudly and nosily, and with a group chat that becomes an orchestra. "As long as your wrists aren't tired," she says, and Imani tells her they are pleasantly fatigued by justice. Aaliyah says, "Call me if he gets weird." And Ezra says, "Call me if I do." And they all laugh, because this is how power behaves when it has learned humility as a sport. On a night blown with rain, and something in it like a dare, a stranger arrives at the library closed and knocks a rhythm at the back door. Imani opens. A teenage girl stands there, soaked. Mascara, a valedictory speech down both cheeks. She holds a mask made of cardboard, paint still wet. "I heard," she says, "this is where you can learn to be big." "You heard correctly," Imani says, and hands her a towel. And then, when the girl shivers uncontrollably, her own sweater. And then, when the girl's breath slows, a pen. "Write what you need the mask to say," she instructs. The girl writes one line. "I do not apologize for living loudly." She stares at the sentence like it owns property inside her chest. "Now what?" she asks. "Now you teach us the beat you want us to clap," Imani says. The girl thinks. She claps. The rhythm is messy and alive and insists on learning. Ezra appears from the stacks where he had been hiding love in the biography section and adds the bass with his palms on the desk. Aaliyah arrives with food because miracles are hungry. The mask dries. The girl puts it on and does not become someone else. She becomes more of herself with witnesses. Some of those witnesses are ancestors who have been waiting for this exact choreography since the music lost its passport and learned to dance anyway. Coda. The mask, the name, and the moon. The Moonkeepers do not require a marriage or a wound to certify belonging. They require work and joy and the humility to be corrected. Imani keeps, Ezra keeps. They keep each other sometimes, and sometimes they let the other belong to the city because that is the point. The invitation arrives again, a year to the day since the first. Ivory beveled, camellia pressed at the back. Ask. And the night answers. Imani smiles, kisses the flower, tugs it into a book that has grown fat with underlines. She wears a crescent. Ezra wears his silver. The chandeliers do their expensive imitation of stars. The winter garden breathes. They dance slow, the way people who know faster is not always better dance. The girl's shoulders are down in greater numbers. The boy's apologies are funny and sincere, and shorter, because they have gotten better at not needing them. The elders come in through the side door like queens shopping for peaches. The city watches itself behave beautifully and decides to practice. On the balcony, the moon performs its usual trick of being both impossible and normal. Ezra places his forehead against Imani's and says, "We never did the last name thing." "No," she says, and the word means not yet, and also, perhaps, never in the way people mean when they have found a better way to belong. "What if," he says carefully, "we don't? What if we keep the other name, the work name, the mask name, the true name that isn't government property? What if that is enough?" "It is," she says, astonished by how free the answer tastes. "It is enough. And when it isn't, we will ask for a different enough." He kisses her once. "Tell me a rule." "Easy," she says. "Don't lie with your mouth." "And the rest?" "We negotiate," she answers, and draws him into a kiss that makes a promise and also takes one. They do not unmask, to be honest. They are honest and sometimes unmasked to rest. They invent a romance that does not apologize for having ancestors. They keep a masquerade that teaches the party to be more than glitter. They carry daylight into night and return night to daylight without spilling it. When the music swells and the paintings blink and approve, Ezra leans close, lips at her ear, and says, "Tell me stop." "Keep," she says, and they do, and the city, hungry, tired, eager, eats a better dream and calls it breakfast. Thank you for listening under the Storyteller's moon. If this reinvented masquerade swept you away, if the masks, the Moonkeepers, and the love that outlives midnight stayed with you, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Tell me in the comments, would you keep the mask or ask the name?